when do you see the most tennis injuries?
Oh, well, you will see them year-round these days. With people basically are playing year-round, and here in California, you know, if it rains one day, it's probably not going to rain the next.
That's right.
So I wouldn't say that I see a specific season.
So everyone comes in injured at some point. How about the ladies who are the weekend athletes? Do you see more of those, or do you see that their injuries are more chronic, or they're more tend to get like a tear in the rotator cuff?
I would say I definitely tend to see more of the middle-aged women coming in with injuries. The teenagers tend to be a little bit more resilient. At that level, they are definitely have gone through the stages, have proper coaching, equipment. They're usually, if they're focused and geared towards college or higher level national competitions, then they're doing outside training. So overall, their body strength allows them to remain injury-free. When you've got the mom of 3 kids who's getting out there once a week, if she's lucky, then she's going to be more prone to having these overuse injuries, the tears. So I definitely see more of that.
Do you ever see, I know you're a sports psychologist, so you may only concentrate on competitive athletes. Do you also see adult athletes?
Yes, and I see adults that just actually want to perform better in life and be happier in life. So my practice is pretty broad.
So what happens with these adults who want to find their groove again, their joy again, either in sports or in tennis? And how do you get them to start that motivational ball rolling?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, I really bring them back home to why are you choosing to do this? You know, what's important to you? What are your values? What's important to you about participating in a sport? So that if they get really clear on what's important to them about this participation, then they're automatically motivated. Motivation starts to wane at the basic level if you're doing it for some other reason than your own real satisfaction.
I thought it would just be good to get aerobic exercise, you know.
Yeah,
lower your cholesterol.
which means health is important to you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And now, in many of the tournaments that you've been a coach on, a team coach, did you notice sometimes there were injuries during that tournament, the 2-day, 3-day tournament?
You know, I've talked with Tiffany about that. I haven't seen too many, torn ACLs right at the moment, right on the spot. In general, for tennis, with me, I've seen a lot of chronic, and I've been involved with a lot of chronic injuries. I myself having 3 shoulder operations and an elbow operation. It's the wear and tear. I haven't seen too many. There was actually a lady a few years ago who went out wide for a ball and ended up falling down and dislocating her shoulder at the club. And but that's a freak event. For the most part, I would say it's hey, Bob, I've been hitting serves for the last 6 months and it's hurting, and then they go get an MRI and now they've got either tendonitis or they've got a tear, and so I think for the most part it's just being aware of your body, but also not being stubborn. And I think unfortunately, I know for myself, I didn't want to change my tennis game, and Gordon, my boss, often jokes that I play like a lefty, and lefties are kind of different, I'd say, and so my mechanics were not sound at all, but what I did well hurt me. So I was a good tennis player, but I was hurting myself with my mechanics, and my coaches didn't seem to bother to tell me that. and then once I made a career out of it, I decided that hey, I'm not going to continue to teach unless I fix a few things. So it's just being aware, being in the present and understanding what you're doing to. Everybody's going to get injured in an overuse sport. I mean, we're just not used to going out and doing that, 5, 6 days a week. I mean, eventually, it's tough to. You have to be aware of everything. Diet, I mean, health's definitely key.
Gloria, I think Eric brings up a really interesting point in body awareness, and because we tend to think of tennis as a sport for life, these overuse injuries really can become chronic problems. Tendons, by nature, don't have good blood supply to them. And so if you don't give attention to a joint that's causing you some pain, and because often with tendonitis you can work through it. It's more of a nagging kind of a dull pain, but it doesn't limit you. If you keep pushing yourself through that tendon becomes degenerative, and scar tissue starts to form, and now you're setting yourself up to have chronic problems with the same joint, whatever it may be, for the rest of your life and therefore the rest of your tennis career. Yeah. So I think getting in early.
And listen to your body, like the aches
Absolutely.
and pains.
Well, beyond that, you know, the shoulder hurts, you don't get it fixed, you compensate, then the elbow hurts. So it's not only just that one, what the original pain is, it's going to cause other parts of your, you know, of your body to hurt because you're going to compensate.
Now, what do you think, as a sports psychologist, that dealing with women versus male athletes, what's the difference?
I would say women in general tend to have, they kind of hold an awareness of everything in their life that's going on at once. They can be doing their sport and thinking about, if they have children, what's happening with the kids. Whereas men generally are able to sort of compartmentalize and be in one place at one time. So, which kind of brings me back to what you guys were saying about the awareness. I teach a lot about focus, just focus in the moment. How do you focus? Through breath, through meditation techniques, whatever it is that allows you to be in that moment and focus, which again extends to your whole life.
We talked, oh, go ahead.
Oh, it was just along the lines of how important sports can play in female athletes' lives, or they don't have to be athletes, I'm sorry, but it really helps with self-confidence, obviously your overall health, your body image. You learn how to be a team player. There are so many things that young girls can get from playing a sport that is so important to their life, even beyond that sport.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We had talked about visualization she uses, which is big, and that's something I'd like to use more of. And you know, putting yourself in that moment, whether it's the night before your match or whatever it is you're doing, and seeing yourself be successful. I think that we, in such a fast-paced world, we don't slow things down enough, and that's something that can really be beneficial that she uses.
And to the mind, there's no difference between imagining you're doing something and actually doing it. The same neural networks are traveled, so it's actually...
And if you sort of associate a positive feeling walking on the court rather than you know, fear and dread, then it becomes more a positive feedback loop, and so that you carry that with you each time you go in the tennis court. I always thought it was kind of interesting that in motivating, you know, star athletes, like on television in the football, they interview the, you know, the NFL coaches and all that, and they say that before the big Super Bowl, they have their guys do a certain routine, and this is it, you know, and they're all together. So there must be certain routines that you think are good. What do you think are good for these young women teams and the recreational players and the club players?
With the ladies on your teams, it's usually drinking wine after the match. But, but I would say that routines are huge. I mean, you know, it's whether it's, I mean, you'll see certain people, you know, it's going up and that, you know, habitual going up and bouncing the ball 3 times, you know, your pre-match meal. If you continue to do something different each time, they're probably going to have a different effect and a different outcome. And we're not looking to have a different outcome. We're looking to win or to enjoy it, have fun. And I think a lot of it's growing up, tennis was such an individualized sport for me, but now as a coach, with the USTA and with all these leagues, it's really a team atmosphere, and I think sometimes the best teammates and the best players on the team aren't the best players. It's the ones that are willing to go the extra mile, you know, go out and practice with the ladies even if they're not playing, show up to the matches, and just that give them morale, you know, boost morale, which is something that you definitely do as, you know, on our teams, and it's been a nice blessing. But I think just like with injuries, just like with anything, the more you're aware of something, the more you you find what you're successful at and then stick to it. I mean, there's no reason to, you know, what does it say? If it's not broke, don't fix it, you know, so.
I think it's really important to let all these players know that to see the joy, the happiness, to see the positive, because I think that is the only thing that sort of carries them through the dark moments, like they're in the sort of losing all these matches and they have to come back to win the next set or whatever. So it's hard to do that for all these people because everyone's slightly different. They're all wired a little different. I want to ask a little bit of something about the tennis racket and what we should expect for our tennis players. So here you have a racket.
Yes.
And you have 2 types of balls. So tell us about the grip. And
so generally, with rackets today, they really have changed. They're bringing a lot more you can do a lot more with the racket. I mean, the power, the way that pros played 15 years ago is completely different to the way it is now. Generally,